Have you ever bought something from someone who refused to look you in the eye? If you're anything like me, chances are the answer is a resounding no. Eye contact is a critical part of establishing trust with your ideal clients. In this latest episode, we're going to talk about the subtle but incredibly powerful tool of eye contact to build your on-camera credibility. Let's go. Welcome to Camera Confident. I'm your host, Shirlee Engel, former TV correspondent turned entrepreneur. Tune in to master what to say, how to say it, and how to create buzz for your brand. Whether you're hitting record for the first time or trying to land major media opportunities, I've got you covered. Get ready to crush it on video or stage, attract more clients, and bring in more money so you can run your business and live your life your way. Thank you so much for joining me for an incredibly important topic that I don't think gets enough coverage when we talk about on-camera impact and what makes people effective, especially if you're a business owner hoping to attract ideal clients through the lens. So why is eye contact so important, especially when you're on camera? Well, think about how we communicate in real life. When you're having a conversation with someone, if they don't make eye contact with you, it's like they're being evasive. It's like they're not confident. Do you see how the way I'm talking right now, I'm not making eye contact with the camera? It's weird, right? It just feels like you're not trustworthy, or you have something to hide, or you're insecure. Well, obviously in person, eye contact makes a person feel valued and listened to. It's literally like saying, I'm here, I'm with you, I'm listening, I'm engaged. It can make the person feel valued. It can make them feel truly connected to you, because that old adage, your eyes are the windows of the soul, it might sound cheesy, but it is actually true. When you look into someone's eyes in real life, it creates a connection that you just can't create if you're not actually looking the person in the eye. That connection is exactly what we're trying to replicate on camera as we go about creating engaging content that will call in our ideal clients and ultimately help us do more selling. Even though there's a screen between you and your audience, it's still a critical way to build trust and bridge this digital divide that we all feel on social media. But here's the challenge. Looking into the camera lens is not the same as looking someone in the eye. In fact, the camera can feel like a cold, unblinking eye if you really focus on looking into the lens and keep talking. It can start to feel strange after a while. It can make your vision go a little blurry if you're talking for too long, especially if you're on an iPhone like I am right now and I'm looking at this green light. It does eventually get quite monotonous. Add to that the bright lights that we put on when we're trying to look our best, and you can be positively blinded by the light, quite literally, to the point that you're not even looking at the right spot to really look at the lens so that you create the effect of looking your viewer in the eye. Look, I get it. It's easy to get distracted and even feel uncomfortable when you're trying to lock the gaze with the camera. One of the most common mistakes that I see entrepreneurs make when they're trying to create engaging content is they don't look in the right place. They look at themselves. If you're watching this on the video podcast on YouTube, you'll see right now that I'm not looking in the lens, I'm looking at myself, which is something that we've been trained to do when we take selfies and we do videos where we can see ourselves because we're filming with the side of the camera where we can see what we're filming. It's a lot easier to film this way because there's no guessing. You know exactly what things look like. But the problem is, it doesn't look like I'm looking at you. It looks like I'm talking to someone else off screen. So if you're watching the video podcast, watch as I direct my gaze back to the camera. And if you're driving or listening, you can always go back later and check out what this looks like on the video. But now I'm actually looking into the lens again. This is a very common mistake, and something that I'm constantly coaching clients about doing is look in the lens. I know it feels weird. I know it feels uncomfortable, but this is truly something that you have to learn if you want to be effective on camera. Now you might be thinking, okay, Shirlee, that sounds great, but it's easier said than done. I've tried this and it just doesn't work. So let me give you some practical tips that you can take away and practice as you start to master this art of looking into the lens. And this is especially important for those of you who are posting on social media and you think you're connecting with people by looking at yourself rather than looking at the lens. Here are some things I want you to think about. Number 1, picture the lens as a best friend. I know this sounds kind of kooky, but when you actually give the lens a bit of a human quality, it helps you to connect with it more. Imagine that green light or whatever light is on your phone or your camera, or just a part of the lens that you can look into that you can imagine is the other person's eyes. Picture someone you feel really relaxed with, that makes you feel the most at ease. Instead of delivering a monologue, try and have a bit of a conversation. You can pause between takes, that's okay. People don't mind jump cuts as much in this day and age. And by jump cut, I mean something like this. You see me talking, and then I cut to this. And if you're watching the video podcast, you'll see that my hair's a bit different. And there was a little bit of a jump in the edit. That's called a jump cut. And that's okay. It used to be a faux pas in the broadcasting industry, but on social media, it's not only acceptable, it actually makes videos more engaging sometimes. Now, a second common mistake that I see is literally locking eyes with the lens and not looking away. When you're in a regular conversation with someone, you don't keep your eyes fixated on the person without moving, because that can feel downright creepy. So another thing that I want you to think about as you go through this is you can look away every once in a while. That's not only okay, but it's encouraged because it mimics how you communicate in real life. So yes, look into the camera lens, but don't be afraid to look off screen for a moment, look up, look around, but watch your videos back to make sure that it feels natural and that it looks natural as you do it. Now, here's another tip, especially if you're listening and not watching me as I do this podcast. It's not enough to just look at the lens. You've got to watch your videos back and make sure you're actually making that connection. And what I mean by that is sometimes when you're on camera, you do need to open your eyes a little wider. This might sound kind of weird, but this is something that I struggled with early on in my reporting career. When I would look into the camera, I thought I was doing great, but then I'd go back and watch my edit tapes, which I highly recommend you do. And I noticed that I still felt disconnected. I still felt like I wasn't captivating the camera. I wasn't really being magnetic on camera. And one of the reasons is because look at what happens when I just have a normal gaze on camera. And if you're listening to this on the audio version, think about when you've seen yourself in photos and it almost looks like your eyes are closed. Sometimes your eyes can be really relaxed in real life, and it doesn't make you connect as much with the camera. But look at what happens when I open my eyes a little bit wider and I really look at the lens. Now, I'm not talking about like going super wide-eyed like this where you're creeping people out, but there is a happy balance and you will have to find this yourself. And the only way to really know what works for you is to watch yourself back. As I know, I repeat ad nauseum, but I can't stress that enough. Another tip I can give you, and this is something that some of my students have done, is to place an object or a sticker or a picture as close to the camera lens as possible, and it will act as a reminder for you to keep your gaze on the lens. So if you're tempted to look away or wander off or look at yourself as you're recording, that's something that I would highly recommend doing. And if you're on an iPhone or a smartphone that has cameras on both sides, use the side that doesn't have the screen, because then you won't be tempted to look at yourself when you're recording, and it can be easier to place an object like a sticker or something like that as close to the lens as possible. It's really important to clarify here that there is such a thing as too much eye contact. You don't want to lock your gaze with the camera like this and not move and be so intense that it's almost like when you're in real life and somebody is just like looking you so intently in the eye that you almost feel like you have to take a step back. Some of the same social rules apply when it comes to being on camera. Just like you don't want to be too close to the camera and invade that virtual personal space, you want to make sure that you blink. It's okay to blink every once in a while. It's okay to go from a bit wider to a little bit more closed and kind of vary your facial expression so you don't look too robotic. It's also okay to emphasize certain points by looking away every once in a while, just the same way you would speak if you were speaking to somebody in person, face to to face. You might look away every once in a while when you're trying to emphasize a point or when you're thinking about something. Also be aware of where you're looking, because I know some people have a tendency to look up too much and that can be a little bit awkward. Are you looking to the side? Are you looking down? These are things, again, that once you watch your videos back, you'll see what feels most natural to you, what feels good. Rule of thumb is generally keep the camera at eye level, which will make it so much easier to make eye contact, and it'll prevent awkward things like giving you a double chin or people looking up your nose or down at you. Before I wrap up, I want to give you a challenge. No matter how confident you think you are on camera, I challenge you to go record a video and practice the art of eye contact. Play the video back and watch it with as critical an eye as you can. Be ruthless. Are you really looking into the lens? Are you truly connecting? There's lots of ways you can play with this to be more effective and more engaging. And if you need a hand or you don't feel like you're objective, feel free to DM me your video and I'd love to take a look. You can find me on Instagram or on LinkedIn, links in the show notes. Whether you send me your video or not, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear how this goes for you. If you have any thoughts or comments on the idea of eye contact and why it's important to maintain it, any tricks or tips that you personally have tried that you have found helpful. I know this seems like a really basic, obvious subject, but you'd be surprised how many even seasoned speakers struggle with this. So hit me up on social media, and I can't wait to connect with you again in the next episode of the Camera Confident Podcast. Until next time, keep those videos coming, and remember, your message deserves to be seen and heard. Your audience is waiting. Thanks for listening to Camera Confident. Help us grow by subscribing, liking, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to follow me on LinkedIn at Shirlee Engel and on Instagram at b.camera.confident. See you next time.